So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Tonight is during SALT Talks for the month of October. We're looking at my child is 18, now what? So many times we've had to face um, that challenge of transition in the sense of when our child goes to from that high school and then they turn 18, and then depending on how you plan for high school, the whole transition becomes a lot of challenges to navigate, actually. I had a migraine for quite a long time when we were going through that between all the eligibility, the paperwork, and all that stuff. And I didn't know what I was doing really, but I had people like Debbie here that helped me through that. I heard her speak like shortly after we realized our son was going to be 18 very soon, and all the things that were going to happen upon that 18 mark, that year of 18. So I'm going to go and turn it over to Debbie. I'm going to let her introduce herself. And
Mhm.
Debbie, I'll pull up your handout so people can see that while you're talking.
Perfect. And started out on the first page of it, the Social Security, the SSDI side,
Oh,
because
okay.
since there's fewer people probably on the SSDI, I'll go over it, but I know work incentives they're going to look at mostly are going to be the SSI, and that's where I want to focus heavily. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming and listening to this presentation tonight. My name is Debbie Schwartz. Some of you I may have met at the transition fair a couple of weeks ago, um, or at other SALT meetings. I worked for the Social Security um, Administration for 39 years, and I retired in March of 2018, so prior to COVID, and started my own business. I'll give you that information now. If you're wanting to reach me, it's get SSA Help at gmail.com. And if you're wanting to go to my website, I'm not very good at keeping it up because I'm not very computer savvy, but it's getSSAHelp.com. Um, and so basically, the last 19 years I was with the agency, and what I've done since is help individuals with disabilities transition to work. And I know you all had a presentation previously on Social Security and SSI benefits and how to apply for them. So other than recapping just a little bit briefly, other page.
Oh, the other one.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
sorry
other
about.
side. I'm going to keep
There we go.
SSI for the end. Um, but just to kind of recap, Social Security Administration administers two different kind of disability programs. The first is Social Security Disability Benefits, or SSDI. You can see up on your screen, and if you printed out the handouts before the meeting, you'll see that list of work incentives there. Um, this is for individuals who have either worked and paid into Social Security themselves, or have a parent who has worked and paid into Social Security who is receiving a benefit or has passed away, and the young adult's disability is documented as occurring prior to age 22. So there, maybe you have a young adult who's had summer jobs. You don't need very many quarters of coverage when you're a younger person. So it wouldn't take much to have enough quarters on your own Social Security record, or you have a mom or dad receiving benefits, or who has passed away who had paid in on that time. Um, the other program is SSI, Supplemental
I have that
Security
too.
Income. We'll cover that second. But I mean, just to give you an idea of the difference, whereas Social Security
Ooh,
disability, somebody has had to work and pay in quarters in order for there to be an eligibility, because it's like an insurance benefit. SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income, and it's for individuals who have not worked and paid into Social Security or ever, or who paid in very little. and this supplements them up to at least a bare minimum rate. The most you can draw on SSI right now is $967. Um, but it's there, and in the state of Ohio, if you qualify for SSI, you automatically qualify for Medicaid. On SSDI benefits, after 2 years, you would be eligible for Medicare, the same Medicare that grandma and grandpa get when they turn 65. So those are the two different programs. And it's possible that you will have a son or daughter who turns 18 and you apply for the SSI, but then once that disability is established as having happened prior to age 22, when you go to retire or you file for disability benefits, you'd want to talk to the Social Security person about applying for disability benefits on your record for that disabled adult child. What we're covering tonight are work incentives. Work incentives are policies put in place by Social Security to encourage individuals with a disability to work. The disability, when you have a disability, has to be expected to last at least 12 consecutive months or result in death. And you can't be making over a substantial amount, you can't be making a substantial amount of money and still qualify, because it's to replace wages lost due to not having a job. So qualify for the disability benefit, you would have to show that you're not earning more than $1,620 a month as an individual, and that's gross, that's before taxes. Once you're receiving benefits or while you're applying for benefits, there are things that you can do and still draw that full disability benefit on the Social Security side or a modified amount on the SSI side. Since the majority of the individuals are going to be on SSI probably when they reach 18, we're going to go over the Social Security or SSDI benefits first. And Patty has up on the screen the handout that I presented. Social Security, because you've worked and paid into it, you're going to discover when we look at the two programs, they're far more generous in a lot of ways on how much you can earn and continue to keep your Social Security disability benefit without reduction. That's because it's an insurance program, so it's a little more generous. But after you've started receiving the Social Security disability benefit or the disabled adult child benefit, if you're a disabled adult receiving on a parent record, the first 9 months you work after receiving that benefit, you can earn as much as you want while you test your ability to work. Now, they're really looking for an actual testing your ability to work. So you'll notice that it takes $1,160 or more to even qualify as a trial work period. So if you have a son or daughter who's only earning a couple $100 a week, where even in a 5-week month, they're not going to make over $1,000, that's not even a trial work period. That's just them earning some extra money. What this trial work period, though, does do is allows you to work and oh, I'm sorry. I got distracted by the chat box. I'm sorry. It allows you to work at your fullest potential while you test your ability to work. The months do not have to be in a row. It's 9 months, but they don't have to be in a row. So if you have a job for 2 or 3 months during the summer and that didn't work out, so you don't work again for a few months, it's only the months where you worked and earned $1,160. After you've used that 9-month trial work period up, there's a second work incentive. So the trial work period goes away, you've used that work Work incentive up, you go to the next one, and that's called the extended period of eligibility. Now, that extended period of eligibility, if you never go over the substantial earnings amount, which, like I said, is $1,620 a month, your extended period of eligibility will be forever, unless unless you recover from your disability. However, for the first 36 months of it, if you make over the substantial earnings amount for a few months and then you dip below and then you go back up, you will be paid for any month that you don't go over the $1,620. So again, you have that safety net there that I'm working, I'm doing a great job, I'm making a whole lot of money, but if something happens in that job taken from me, the economy tanks and you get laid off or your disability exacerbates and you have to stop working for a while, you can get that benefit back without a new disability application, without having to do all that disability part again. You just show that your earnings are now below the $1,620 a month. Continuation of Medicare. One of the benefits of being on SSDI benefits is that after 2 years of those benefits, you qualify for the Medicare. And the continuation of Medicare says that even if after the 9-month trial work period, you are making so much money that your cash benefit reduces to zero because you're making over 1,620, you can maintain your Medicare eligibility for up to 93 months after the 9-month trial work period. So this is great if you have a really fabulous opportunity for a job that your son or daughter can do. But the health insurance is going to be astronomical. You could opt to just stay on the Medicare and pay that premium and keep the Medicare instead. Now, a couple things with these work incentives on the SSDI side. You'll notice on the sheet, impairment-related work expenses. So let's say you earn $1,800 a month gross, which is over the 1,620, but you have to pay for special transportation of $150 a month, and you have co-payments or deductibles for your health insurance, or not health insurance, strike that. Your health care costs. So like doctor copays or prescription copays, or durable medical equipment. If you pay that out of your own pocket, you can subtract that off the gross wages to see if you can get those earnings below the 1,620. Obviously, if you're making over 1,620, you would have to take your paycheck stubs and proof that you paid for those expenses into Social Security so that they can see, yes, I made this much money. However, I had these out-of-pocket expenses to subtract. And when we subtract those off, I'm back below the $1,620. That would be a work incentive that would allow you to keep your Social Security disability benefit, even if you're making over that 1,620. The next one, subsidy and special condition. That's on the bottom of that first page. Social Security is on the SSDI side, is looking to see what the value is of the work that you are performing. So if you are in a job position and because of your disability, you work at a slower rate, or you need extra supervision or need to be redirected a lot, and that takes time from the supervisor, or you produce widgets and you only produce 80 widgets a day instead of 100 widgets a day, but they pay you the same amount as an individual without a disability. Social Security could go to your employer, and there's a form on Social Security's website the employer can complete that verifies, yes, they get extra help, yes, extra supervision, they have a lower production rate, and they're only working at 80% capacity of a non-disabled individual. So what would happen is Social Security would only count 80% of your gross wages instead of the full 100%. So I've seen some individuals, a good example would be a bagger at Kroger. Most baggers at grocery stores um, will not only bag groceries, but they would be a backup cashier, and they may have tasks to stock shelves or something. But because of the disability, that may not be possible for that person. So those two job tasks are taken out of their work requirement. Or a non-impaired individual might bring in 100 carts an hour, whereas a person with a disability may only bring in 75 or 80 carts an hour. If they get that confirmed by the employer, they will go ahead and allow for those benefits to continue. But again, it would require you being in touch with Social Security and telling them about this so that you can do that. Before I go on to the SSI, which is where we'll focus the majority of our attention, does anybody have any questions that they want to put into the chat box about the SSDI benefit and those work incentives?
I don't see anything
Okay,
in the chat box at this point.
okay. Well, let's go to the next page then on the SSI side. Now, SSI, as I mentioned earlier, is a program based on disability and financial need. It's for the person who's not worked and paid into Social Security to get an SSDI check, or their parents haven't retired yet, so they can't get off of mom or dad, and they they have no income or not very much other income. Because it is income based, however, the work incentives are different. And the benefit of the two-sided sheet I gave you is what you see on that side of the sheet applies to the benefit that's listed at the top of the sheet only. So like you notice, we didn't have general exclusion and wage exclusion on the SSDI side. On the SSI side, there's no 9-month trial work period where you can make as much as you want. There's no golly gee, you can make up to 1,620 and keep your check. Totally, they're both administered by Social Security, but totally independent of each other when it comes to the work incentives. So on the SSI side, the first $20 of any income is not counted. That's called a general exclusion. So if you're receiving child support, they won't count the first $20 of child support. If you're receiving a disability benefit from another company, the first $20 of that disability benefit is not counted. Or if you have no other income, the first $20 of gross wages will not be counted. The second is the wage exclusion. Social Security does not count the first $65 of wages or self-employment net profit per month. And then whatever's left over, they would discount 1/2 of that. So there's an example in the middle of the page, if we could scroll down a little bit. Well, look at this first one there. It says standard. They have $1,000 in gross wages and no other income. So the $20 general exclusion comes off, the $65 wage exclusion comes off, which leaves $915 divided by 2. So of that $1,000, their SSI will only be reduced by $457.50, not the whole $1,000. So they're not going to receive the full SSI check, but they still will have it, and they will still have their Medicaid, which I think is very important. Even if the math, you do that math problem, because you can plug in any amount for the gross wages, but even if that gross wage amount is becomes so high that -20 -65 divided by 2 means the amount that's countable knocks out the full SSI cash benefit. You may not get the cash benefit, but under a special rule with Medicaid, you would still be eligible for the Medicaid. It's called 1619B. That's not on your sheet, but Social Security will code it to say, yes, they're making so much money that -20 -65 divided by 2, there's not a cash check. However, we're still going to give them Medicaid because most likely they're still going to need the Medicaid. Um, and so again, that's a great work incentive from the standpoint that you may be able to find a great job, but you don't want them to lose their Medicaid waiver, or you don't want them to lose their Medicaid because they have a very expensive medication that they couldn't afford without the Medicaid. The continuation of Medicaid takes care of that.
It looks
Now
like
you'll
there's,
see it.
I'm sorry, Debbie. It looks like there's a question.
Sure.
It says to clarify, the parent must be receiving Social Security for the disabled child to qualify for SSDI.
Yes, or be passed away. They have to be receiving retirement, disability, or the adult child could receive as a survivor. Yes. So I see a lot of situations where at age 18 they go on SSI that establishes that their disability occurred prior to age 22. They never work over that substantial amount. And when they're 35 and mom or dad retires, then they apply for the disabled adult child benefit on their parents' record. Does that make sense or answer that person's question?
Let me see here. What if the retirement is not through Social Security?
Okay, you had to have worked and paid into Social Security to get an SSDI check. So if they worked for the city, state, local governments, police department, fire department, or the school, and they never paid into Social Security, then the parent isn't going to get a Social Security check. And if they don't get a Social Security check, neither can the child. But sometimes you pay into both, like in the state of Kentucky, and in the state of Michigan, even school teachers will pay into Social Security and their teacher pension. So they have both to qualify for when they, oh, you're welcome. Um, they could qualify that way. Or maybe they're a teacher and most of their stuff is from the teacher pension, but then they have a part-time job or a summer job and they pay into Social Security for that summer job. And it used to be there was an offset if you got another pension, but that went away about a year and a half, a little over a year ago. So that made it great because then we don't have to worry about it anymore. Any more questions on that before I move forward with the SSI? Okay. Just like we talked about impairment-related work expenses on the SSDI side, they are applicable to SSI as well. Again, SSI is a program based on financial need. And so you'll see the 1,000 in the middle column there of examples, $1,000 in gross wages, -20, -65. And then you subtract off impairment-related work expenses. Now here, just for the benefit of the example, I used $200. So maybe they had to pay special transportation of $50 a week. or they saw a therapist that wasn't covered by their insurance and had to pay $65 a week to see their therapist. Um, I know a lot of music therapies and speech and language therapies aren't always covered by health insurance. So if you're having to pay for that out of your own pocket, that would be subtracted. And then you would divide it by two to come up with how much would be subtracted from the SSI. Now, on the Social Security or SSDI side, um, an individual who is legally blind in both eyes, that's 2,200 best corrected, or no peripheral vision, um, can make, instead of 1,620, can make $2,700 a month and still draw their full SSDI check. On the SSI side, it just changes the math formula. So you'll see there's a column there that says blind, BWE. Above where it says example, you'll see it says blind work expense. These are expenses that are like those impairment related work expenses that we talked about, but also state, local, federal taxes, lunches eaten while you're at work, union dues, things like that. And the formula is different. So $1,000 in wages minus the $20 exclusion minus the $65 wage exclusion is the 950. But instead of like the impairment related work expense where we then subtract off that early before dividing by two, this time we divide by two first. Then you subtract off all of those things that I listed. And you can see if an individual's blind. I'm not encouraging you to cheer on your child being blind, but be aware that they can make $1,000 in gross wages and maybe only lose about $7-8 a month of their SSI, just because the way of the math formula. So it's just something to put in the back of your head that that applies, because you're going to want to then not just report their gross wages every month, but you'll have to send the paycheck stubs to the Social Security office so that they can see how much was withheld for taxes or union dues or things like that, so they know what to deduct off of the blind from the blind work expenses before they reduce the SSI check. When this reduction, when you report the wages, like if you report wages for this month, the month of October, if you're still going to be doing a partial SSI check, you do the math formula and there's still a little bit of money left over, the October wages impact the December check. The November wages are going to impact the January check. The reason for that is you earn it in October, you report it the first week of November, and they have time to adjust the check by the December 1st check. So you might find if you have a 3 paycheck month or something like that, it's going to reduce it, but it's not going to reduce it until 2 months later. And you're like, hey, wait a minute, I've already spent all that money. Now I'm back down to just my regular 2 checks. Just understand that you have to budget for that. Let's scroll down a little bit so we can get to my favorite work incentive. Student earned income exclusion. The student earned income exclusion is really, really geared to our transitional youth sons and daughters. In the past, the rule was on student earned income exclusion. This was like prior to 2000. You can make up to 400 a month or 1,620 in a year and not have it impact the SSI check. And the reason for that is that there were programs for what they call disadvantaged youth, where they would find you a job within the community where they would pay you $100 a week for 16 weeks usually, to work in your community, so you would have some extra money for the upcoming fall school year. And Social Security wanted to put something in place so that you getting that work experience and having that little pocket money wasn't going to mess up your SSI check. But I mean, they finally realized after the ticket to work legislation that they really needed to beef that up if they really, really wanted to give students the encouragement. Number one, stay in school up until they age out and work and get those work experiences where it's a safe environment. I don't know where all of you are coming from, but a lot of you are in areas where there's project search, where they're going to place you and work with you. And sometimes, you can earn some money doing some of those, or it helps move into where you can earn money. Or you want to go to through a vocational program, and part of that is you maybe get a little part-time job on the side when you're not in vocational school. This allows student on SSI, even though this is a financial needs-based program, Social Security will not count the first $2,350 a month in wages up to a maximum of 9,460 when calculating the SSI program. If you were under age 22 and are going to school or in a training program on a regular basis. So project search would count, vocational school would count. So deferring the child's diploma till age 22, let them socially graduate. My son socially graduated with his normal graduating class. His class ring shows the year he quote unquote graduated, but he got a blank booklet when it came to his diploma. So he could stay in and do more vocational training and go through project search. And he didn't pick up his diploma till age 22. So when he was doing that, he could make up I mean, you're basically talking full time during the summer months and part time during the fall and winter months. And they never see an impact at all on the SSI check. It's really a great benefit to give them that opportunity to work and get that job experience. Some of you working with opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities, they'll have work study programs for 6 weeks during the summer months. But if your child is still going to go back to school in the fall, they can work, they can have those earnings and make up to $2,350 a month and never lose their SSI check or any of their SSI check. And they still get to keep all their Medicaid. So it's really a great incentive to encourage students and parents to allow them, because they know a lot of parents I talk to are worried they're going to lose their Medicaid or they're worried about losing that check. And it's great that they make it this month, but what happens in the fall when they go back to school? This is letting you know there's a way to work around that so that they can have the best of both worlds. Plan for Achieving Self-Support is on there. You can plant that seed. Very rarely is it ever used as a work incentive. However, if your son or daughter has an opportunity to work toward a vocational goal that will work with them off of disability benefits once they've gotten that training or education or purchase those specific items that are needed for them to be successful, and they have income that is lowering the SSI check, they could set aside that income to pay for that program and still draw the full SSI check. For example, I, for a while, was doing some work in Michigan on work incentives, and I had a young man who was a part-time pizza delivery worker for Domino's. And he really wanted to become an auto mechanic. He knew that he tinkered with his friends' cars. He knew he was really good at it, but you had to go through an 18-month, 3 6-month semesters or training things to get enough credits to get certified to be a basic auto mechanic. And then with that basic auto mechanic certification, you could go to He had already contacted GM up there at one of the dealerships to work in um their repair shop. But any place, and you could use it to get in there. And he had talked with the GM dealership in his area, and they told him that if he got this 18-month certification, they would hire him as a hey boy. Now, I'd never heard of that term before, but you're going to smile. The only thing we could think of is, hey boy, come here, do this. Hey boy, come here and do that. So we got the vocational rehabilitation up there, their version of OOD, to pay for the training classes. And at the end of each semester, he had to take a test, and that test cost like $150. So State VR paid for his classes and the testing fees. And he took his pizza delivery money, and we're looking at that standard deduction, his money minus 20 minus 65 divided by 2. Instead of lowering his SSI by that amount that was left over, he put that into a separate bank account and saved it. So when he needed brake calibrators for class, he had the money to go buy the brake calibrators. When he had to get some other tools or whatever, he was able to get those purchased with that money from his pizza delivery that normally would have lowered his SSI, but they kept paying him the full SSI rate while he saved that money aside for those expenses that the VR wasn't paying for. At the end of the 18 months, he had all of his certifications. General Motors hired him and assured him that after 2 years of working with them, they would send him to Mr. Goodwrench School and they would pay for it. And he had a full-time job. I can't think of a better way to help in the long term support your son and daughter than to strategize for a way to possibly use that, whether they're going to college. And maybe, I've seen some where the VR will pay for the college, but they won't pay for the laptop, or they won't pay for the bus tokens. Um, and so they have a part-time job or some other kind of income, and they use that to purchase those and maintain their full SSI rate while they're doing that plan to achieve self-support. So while it doesn't help everybody, it certainly is there if you have a son or daughter that this would apply to. With both Social Security and SSI, there's another incentive that I want to talk to you about. It's not on either of those sheets, but it'll be on this recording and you can write it down. It's called expedited reinstatement. Expedited reinstatement says that even now on the SSI side, if you're keeping up with your SSI, even if your cash benefit is 0, they're not closing out your SSI because they're still giving you the eligibility for Medicaid. So they keep your SSI open. So if you stop working, it's just a matter of calling them saying my work has stopped. But on the SSDI side, after that 36 months is over, if you're continuing to make over that substantial limit, your cash benefit would end. But expedited reinstatement, or EXR, if you want its acronyms, and Social Security is so good about having acronyms. With the EXR, they will pay you your cash benefit for up to 6 months while they update the medical decision. So you don't even have to worry about, oh, gee, I've got a great job now, but what happens if I can't keep it up? Social Security is always going to be there for you. The idea is to encourage an individual to work at their best capability and to lead what their fullest life, whatever that looks like for your son or daughter, but to know the Social Security will be there for them in the event that they aren't able to sustain that work. So now I want to open it up to questions. We've got some time here.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, Debbie. So depending on the question, so it for the individuals and depending on what the questions are.
That's
Um,
fine.
I but I want to just before I shut the recording, I just want to thank you for all the information you shared. Um, it seems like a lot of information that comes through, and it's like reading through it. And Debbie's great because she's had so much experience with it. So start thinking of your questions, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. But again, thank you for presenting on this information.
Absolutely.
Okay, one second while I stop this.